Hello again, welcome to the video on CPF Forecast Calculator for advanced usage. So remember in my previous video, I actually did an introduction of the CPF Forecast Calculator and what it's supposed to do, right? I showed you the basic around it, right? And in this video, I'm going to show you some of the advanced options for you to answer some of these questions over here, right? So let's take a look at our previous Mr. X, where he's born in 1990s, age 34 this year, and intended to retire at 55 with current salary at $3,000. So you can see that his total CPF balance at retirement or 55 is 600k, right? And he's not achieving ERS at that age yet. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens if I want to try achieving ERS for Mr. X, right? And what are the things that I can do, right? So obviously if Mr. X is younger, right, if let's say he's born in the year 2000, so he is only 24 this year, actually he's gonna be a millionaire, right? He has more years to actually plow through and earn the interest on his current balance, and actually he will achieve the ERS sum by age 50. So that's one way to go about it, right? Because you have more time for your salary to grow, more time for your contribution to be added to your CPF. Okay, but of course we can't all time travel, so let's take a look at what other things that Mr. X can do. So let's say he's thinking about as a cash top up by adding cash to the special accounts directly every year, especially in the month of January. So let's take a look at what difference would it make if I top up $2,000, right? You can see right now I'm still not achieving my ERS, but the gap is closing. It's no longer more than 100,000. It's about how much is this? About 70,000 or so left, right? So if I were to change this to 4,000, right, every single year I'm adding $4,000 of cash into my special accounts, and then basically it's also tax deductible, right? I get to deduct that from my IRAS income tax. Then I actually can have a CPF total balance of 745k and also achieve my ERS at age 54, right? So that's one way that you can see, oh, how much do I have to contribute in cash, right, to be able to reach that. Now, assuming that he can't do cash top up, let's see if Mr. X were to work harder from now, right? So he's age 34, he's taking additional courses, the skills future courses, change industry, decided to pivot into management roles, so on and so forth. What happens, right? So you can see actually his trajectory changes as well, right? He actually can also achieve ERS. In fact, you can see his salary growth. He's going to end up at about $8,000 when he's 54 years old, and with that he actually can achieve ERS around this age, right? So there are different ways that you can emulate this, right? 2.5% is actually somewhat a good estimate, because the annual average increments around 3 to 4% for most people in Singapore anyway. So this gives you a slight increase, just beating inflation kind of like increment. Okay, and of course you can adjust how much bonus months he has for his performance and all of that. So remember that we just now top up SA by $4,000. What if instead of doing cash top up, we went ahead and do a OA to SA transfer? Actually, you can see that the CPF balance doesn't change much, and he still do not move off and hit his ERS. So let's just change the figure again. So remember, this is 637. The difference between 637. So you can see it's about 20 over under 20k of difference if he were to just make those transfer, because he's just earning interest on a small amount over here. That's why cash top up is going to be much more meaningful than trying to transfer OA to SA. So this also answers questions like, if let's say I'm considering transferring monies from OA to SA, locking up liquidity for buying house to be moved towards retirement, is it worth it? So you have to decide for yourself if that is worth it for you. Okay, now on the next question, CPF housing. So over here you can see Mr. X here does not have a house. He's not using any of his CPF or mortgage. Let's take a look at alternative scenario. Let's say Mr. X here, he's 34, so he actually should have quite a bit of balance here. Let's say he has 25k in each of this. He has 23k on OA, but actually he used up, let's say, $80,000 for housing already, right? That means it has been deducted already, right? You can just log into SingPass and look at this number, how much you have used for housing plus interest, right? So plug that number in here for it to determine how much you know, you have to do CPF refund down the road. Okay, and because he still has an outstanding mortgage, he's paying about like $800 per month, split between him and his wife, right? We can now take a look at his trajectory. Now you can see for sure his total CPF balance is dropped drastically because he's taking $800 out from whatever contribution that he's getting from the salary here, and therefore he's not getting his total balance is going to fall by a lot, right? You can see his ordinary account, right, did not move at all. In fact, over here, this number here stands for when the mortgage ends. So he's taking somewhat around 30 years. He still have about 20 plus 30 years on his mortgage. So you have to decide like how much this would be, right? If you move it forward like 10 years, then we see completed it earlier. You can see the point where he starts stop paying for mortgage. You can start seeing increment in his OA account also. Okay, so over here you can assess the impact of like you know, what especially when you're buying house and looking at a mortgage, you can see the impact of like, let's say, a $800 mortgage on your retirement. So remember, he was achieving FRS before, but because of this outstanding mortgage, he's no longer achieving FRS, right? At age 55, his retirement sum is 291, but you know, the FRS at that year is actually, you know, almost 100k more, right? So here's where you also can model the CPF OA refund amount. You can see every year I'm using more OA for my housing. That's why this is rather steep, and this is the point where I'm stop using extra OA for it, and this is just the interest rate growth, right, up to the point of 55, right? So you can use this to model you know, how much your housing plans, right, to see if, let's say, you want to buy a house 10 years down, right, how much you would have to refund back into CPF OA, especially so when you want to downgrade your house, right? When you're downgrading, then there might be a scenario where the sales of your house does not cover this or only cover a portion of it, and you end up needing to pay cash to actually refund the amount back into CPF. So it might not even make sense for you to downgrade your house. So this gives you an idea of how much you have to refund if you were to sell. Okay, so coming back to here, let's take a look. Okay, we have cover OA to SA, we have cover cash top up, we have to cover CPF refund. Let's take a look at how can I stop contributing. You know, when can I stop contributing so I can hit my target? So all along, I've been using Mr. X, who is somewhat, I would say, below the median income in Singapore. Let's try a different person this time around. This person is 24 years old, just started his career, and his current salary is 5.5k, which is a pretty decent job, you know, slightly above average, I think. And the salary increment, I'm just going to leave it at 2.5k first, right? He doesn't have any of his, like, okay, I'm just gonna live with my mom, right? I'm not going to buy my own house and all. Let's take a look, right? You can see his future is going to be very different from Mr. X, right? He's going to end up almost a two-time millionaire, right? With 1.8 mil as the final balance. In fact, he's going to achieve his ERS at age 37, right? So without mortgage, this guy can really hit it at age 37. So here's where we can model you know, different 5-year scenario where, okay, if let's say he wants to try moving his retirement age to 40, how would that look, right? You can see the contribution curve kind of like there's a kink here where he stops working, and then moving forth is just like interest rate contribution. He's still going to be a millionaire, good for him, right? and he will achieve ERS still at 37 years old, right? So this is amazing. You can see he has zero contribution for the next, you know, what, 30 years of his life, and sorry, this is 15 years of his life, and you know, he's just letting interest work it out for him. Now let's take a look. What if he didn't, you know, plan for this and tries to stop work at age 35 instead? Now moving that forward by just 5 years, right? You can see, oh, he's no longer a millionaire, right? In fact, he's not even going to achieve ERS at all, right? This is why this calculator could be useful for you, because that's where you can actually can see like 5 years actually do make quite a bit difference, especially when his salary is at, you know, such an amount, right? So that's where you can plan, okay, at around which year I can kind of like stop working and all of that. What are the things? So there you go. So another thing, you can assess the impact of housing. So let's say we combine this, and we know that he's going to hit ERS and everything. He's going to have 1.1 mil. Let's say he buys a property right now for, let's say he has a bit more. Let's say he used about 50K for housing. Okay, let's say 0, right? But his monthly mortgage is going to be like about 800, right? He's buying some you know, flat that is not so popular at the age of Singapore. You can see actually he's at this point it starts dipping. OA starts to balance because starts to go down. It's the first time we see a downward sloping curve. Why? Because he stopped working at 40, but he is still taking money out from it until he is 45, based on the mortgage end year, right? So you can see he stopped being a millionaire. But let's take a look if it affects his target. There you see, right? Just buying a simple house, you know, something about, let's say, for 500 grand, it's going to make him not hit ERS if he continues to want to retire at age 40. Let's change that, right? If he works till age 45 instead, yep, he can still hit his ERS, right? So this is how you can plan different things like housing, your intended retirement age, your, you know, how you are at work, you know, how much you have existing and, you know, all the cash top up, to plan ahead to see, you know, what sort of lifestyle you want to have, and also be confident about your choice. Of course, these numbers are not going to be accurate down to the dollars or the cents, but it gives you a good idea around you know, how your decision is going to shape like your balances down the road. So I think on certain forums, and I see people talk about like, hey, does this calculator does this and that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about what the calculator you know, takes into account, right? First of all, it does the CPF allocation rate. So that means if you contribute like $1,000, how many percent of that goes into OA, SA, and MA? It takes into the account of the CPF retirement sum. In fact, I have said it so many times, it's actually used as a target milestones, you know, when I think about retirement. In fact, I project an increase of 3% per year, so that it is a moving target, you know, accounting for inflation and all of that. There is also the adjustment of the monthly ceiling, salary ceiling, right, up, and it's kind of like phased in by year 2027. We will see a salary ceiling of like $8,000, right? But do take note that if you are earning more than $8,000, you still key that amount in, because there's the additional amount going into CPF from your bonus as well. So that one uses a different ceiling. So if you are earning 10K and hit 8K, you're going to get a different numbers from if you have hit put 10K into the salary instead. It also takes into account the simple monthly interest and the annual compounding interest. We do the simulation for CPF cash top up and transfers. We also added interest on mortgage withdrawal to actually get you the CPF refund. Something that people don't know is that there is actually a limit to the BHS, to the MA account, right? So in excess of that, if you contribute in excess of that, the extra will actually overflow to SA. And traditionally, the BHS limit is growing at a rate of about 4.95%, and that's being modeled inside here, right? So you can, if those people who are running their own calculation, and you might be using a static BHS limit, that's where you see a deviation between the numbers and line, because BHS limit actually rises at 4.95% on this calculator. So there's also CPF contribution from bonus as well, right? And there's also a maximum annual limit to how much you can put into CPF. So if you're earning $1 million a year, there's no difference between that and earning $2 million in terms of like CPF contributions. Okay, and of course there are some few assumptions of known limitations. I mean, for simplicity of not giving you like 20,000 different knobs and levers to configure on this calculator, some things are simplified. For instance, bonus of the year is credited only on December. The cash top up and OA transfers happen only in January, and also the missing accrued interest for months prior to now, right? So let's say you are in June right now, right? I don't already know how much you have earned in interest from month January to June, and that can't be found on the CPF application as well. You can't see like what is the current accrued interest, so that is assumed to be zero as well. So that's where you actually see certain kinks around here, explaining like certain weirdness here, and the certain weirdness in the first number over here. Okay, but otherwise it gives you a good estimate and helps you kind of like plan, without trying to get too much into details. Okay, so this is the advanced options. Let me know in the comments how this is helping you, and enjoy planning your retirement, of course.